All right, Trails Collective World. Ian here with the TC Live episode for, it's May 26, 2022 for the live episode. Thanks to all of you who may tune in with us this evening, as well as any who may find this episode later. Thanks to all who may be on and want to join us in questions or comments. Support for the guests. If you are wanting to drop a comment into the feed, this will be streaming live on my personal Facebook page, as well as the Trails Collective's Facebook and YouTube channels. If you want to drop in a question or a comment, do so on the Trails Collective channels, and we can pick it up there. If I had more time in life, I'd get to more promotion to get more of you on here live. But if you do catch it after the fact and you want to drop a comment, sometimes we'll catch it as well. Thank you to all who are tuning in, supporting the Trails Collective community. We've done what we can to try to spread the love around a beautiful trail scene, focusing in on the Northeast, but a bit beyond, and really trying to highlight so many awesome events and individuals and entities out there doing really cool things in the trail world. Thanks to those who just like the channels, who share the episodes, who take that next step and just contribute or kick in a little bit for Patreon support, just to show your support. And we'll try to turn it around into also supporting other events and individuals who are doing pretty cool things. So another really full episode this evening. I'm a little strung out in life at the moment, over juggling. Cayuga Trails is on deck in just over a week. I've got the Ithaca Half Marathon the week after that. I have a couple of businesses, dad in a hospital, and 3 young kids. So I am juggling as much as I can juggle at the moment. So thanks for any and all of your patience if I need to return some communication, but appreciate you being on here. All right, so in this full episode, we are going to, here in just a second, bring in Steve Lange, who just set a unsupported mark on one of the Beast Coast Classics on the Devil's Path and the Catskills. We will bring on Katie O'Regan, a longtime friend. If we can, just ahead of going live here, just catching that her audio wasn't working her live. So if we can get that figured out in short order, we will. Otherwise, we'll maybe reschedule that segment and bring Katie back into the mix maybe next week or the week after. We will have a segment on the Highlands Trail Festival, which I put on times a blur, I think last weekend or the weekend before, something to that effect. A pretty burly event in northern New Jersey, which I think redefines how people think of New Jersey. And we'll have a few individuals who joined us for that inaugural running. We will get into Quest for the Crest. We will have Marek and Jana and David on, who all ran there. Marek doubling back from Highlands. It's a pretty burly double. And then we will have a going long guest this evening with Jessica Vandbush on multiple topics, but with a keynote topic on the gender divide. Jessica wears a lot of hats in addition to just being a trail runner in the trail scene. So it should be fun to check in with her and dig into a few of those hats. All right, so let's get into it. Going to bring in Steve Lange. Again, good to see you, buddy.
Good to see you too.
You look like you maybe just finished and you got the hair pulled back and like you just had a pretty stoked. So is this week or the past couple days that you just threw down? I didn't look at a timestamp.
It was yesterday.
It
was like a weather thing. So I had a friend reach out about weather and dew point and humidity and all those fun metrics, and said, last year you went out on the worst day possible. So I'm going to try and help you pick a better day to do this, because yeah, that's what it's coming down to with these FKTs. It's really just a weather and trail conditions thing, obviously on top of fitness and skill.
And last year when you went out, it was just a really hot day, right? If I remember right.
Super hot, super humid. Sure, it was dry trail conditions, but for moving fast, the body was just, it was terrible.
Yeah.
Going through soup.
And so tell us a little bit about, I've got some of the metrics, but for many, I shouldn't say, I don't know what the percentage is, but I would assume there's a good chunk of individuals out there that are already familiar with the Devil's Path, maybe on their own, or maybe through just knowing about Manitou's Revenge, just being out there. But tell us a bit about Devil's Path and why you're keying in on that one.
So, Devil's Path one, I really like it just because of the technicality and the very burly elevation gain. So it's about 22 miles with 8,500 feet of gain. But in the first 12 miles, you're doing 4 peaks and 4,500 feet of gain. So you start off pretty heavy, and then you get 2 more climbs to Hunter and Westkill to add that remainder of vert. But it's really just one of those mountain races that, I mean, you don't have to do much running. It's just a lot of hiking and then bombing downhills and just kind of hanging on for dear life. I found that with this kind of stuff, I feel like I even run the downhills too hard, which kind of makes me suffer on these uphills, but still trying to dial it in, and just anything over 4 or 5K gain. Like, it just, I don't know. It's so hard to hang on and not be trashed. Like, I don't know, maybe it's a volume thing. Like David Hedges and Jack Kunzel, they can handle this stuff from what I see, just because of the massive amount of time on feet they have. Sure, I'm doing a good amount of work as well in the 10 to 12 hour a week range, but hanging on for a 4.5 hour day is really hard at that threshold. So
and it seemed like at least last year, the year before, as you were going into COVID, you had a really awesome pod of friends, and you were getting out there regularly into some big outings. And I just haven't been seeing them, but it seems like you haven't been as active in that pod, at least the first like few months of the year. People are maybe in different directions or whatever. Do you feel like your fitness is different this year?
So yeah, our little Beast Coast group, I mean, Josh is out in Durango right now. My buddy Frank's up north in Albany, and I hang out with Ian Schultes. You saw him at Breakneck. But I'd say my fitness is pretty on par with previous years. Been doing a lot more, I guess, uphill treadmill workouts and stuff. But yeah, I don't know. Just trying to get the extra couple percent out of these races is so hard, because, you know, we're already performing at this top level, and just getting marginal gains it's really tricky to figure it out. I'm actually thinking about to hire a coach again, just to see if I can, you know, get those
figure some of that out.
Yeah,
and that's interesting. 10 to 12 hours. I don't think that I've done much training in a long time now, but at least I know last thing I was focused on was on kind of an intentional event would have been Ironman back, I don't know, 2012, or like 10 years ago or something like that. Yeah. I know the first round at Ironman, where it didn't quite go that great, I think it was probably around that 15-hour range of training, but to really commit to it, I had to really get up into that 22-hour range. And I would imagine somebody like David Hedges, and I don't see Jack's training, I don't really pay attention to Strava or any of that, but I imagine if for those that can handle that volume, that's kind of where you need to be in volume to really see what you could do out there.
Yeah. I mean, I think Hedges is putting in 16, 18, 20 hours a week of all trail running every day.
Yeah.
2-3 hours. So,
and making the trips to go to some place where he can get long sustained climbs and descents. And so for you out there for Devil's Path, I mean, did you feel like it went down? Is that really how it shook out, even at your hard effort? Was kind of power hiking more the ups and just kind of hammering the downs? Is that how it shakes out?
For the most part, I think my issue is I've been running the downhills a little too hard, which maybe, you know, kind of messed with my ascents. Like, sure, I was power hiking very well, but I mean, you can run some of the ups, but like, what are you doing? 13-minute pace? You know, it's almost more efficient to hike and then run those flat sections like the top of Plateau. And then a little bit after Hunter, there's some like rolling hills for like 2 or 3 miles where you really should, you know, open up. But I mean, it's also a strength thing too. Like, you have to have the durability to handle that much vertical ascent and descent, which I think that's when the volume really speaks. So, yeah.
And particularly there, similar to races like in the same neck of the woods, escarpment, whether it be maybe certain areas of breakneck, but I don't really think that's quite the same. You have to be willing to really, throw just kind of caution to the wind, so to speak. I mean, because you have so much technical terrain, and if you're really looking, so you took down Josh's prior FKT by what, 1 minute and 3 seconds or something like that?
1 minute and 3 seconds. It was stressful but exciting, and so many things going through my head. And I was super happy to just sneak under. I would have been so pissed. I would have been so mad.
And did you, yeah, you were fired up though, but did you, and did you have metrics along the way? Like, did you know like where he was at a certain peak and where you were running in reference to that time?
I had a few splits in mind, and that was the ascent, the start to Indian Head, which was about 40 minutes, which I was on mark for. And then I knew to go through the halfway point to Devil's Tombstone in about 220 is where I wanted to be. And that's exactly where I was. Josh went through in 227. And then I knew just the backside, I had to run 2 hours and at the worst, 214, which is what I ended up running on the backside. And the last 4.5 mile descent from Westkill, I knew was a 40-minute descent with me running well. So I had a mark to hit that between 340 and 350. And I got there at 352. And I was like, oh man, we got to go. There's no room, nothing to lose. And I ended up having a dog with me for about 3 or 4 miles, chasing me. Someone let their dog off leash and it was like clipping my heels, and I'm gonna tell it to go away. And I'm like, all right, whatever, just you're running with me. And it was funny, but annoying. And
Maybe that's your spirit animal, dude. You need to get a hold of that dog. And
oh my gosh,
maybe that dog didn't really exist. Maybe that was just the, your alter ego in there, just kind of nipping at your heels. And so, but that's, so speaking to your effort though, if you were 7 minutes ahead of Josh's prior FKT at half or whatever, I mean, he must have closed hard the day that he set that record.
I think he just went out a little bit more consistent, and I went out, not, I wouldn't say like super fast, but I went out on the stronger side. And I think those descents in that first half can really catch up with you for your climbing legs, because 4,500 feet of descent in 12 miles and then having to climb another 3,000 feet. Like if you're not feeling good, it's going to be a death march, which it kind of turned into. So
not too much. Well, you still got in, you know,
I still got in
a relative concept there, but
yeah, I was holding on for dear life, I'll say.
Well, that's good if you're going to come in under an FKT. So that's pretty awesome. And so what? So it doesn't just stop there. You'll come back at it with Manitous. Is that what you somewhat have on deck, or what do you got coming up?
Yeah, I have Manitous next, and I believe it's 30 days. So I'll probably take 5-7 days of very, very easy zone 1, either biking or shuffling my legs, and then go back into some threshold work, and hopefully the next long run will be in about 14 days or 10 days. So maybe I can get 2 weeks of quality and volume before Manitous. So that's the goal.
And then the only person that's really come in with a metric of an FKT on Devil's Path and then going into Manitous would be Ben. Has anybody else done FKT on Devils and then gone for Manitous? Have some metric of where you're going to be in that field?
I haven't looked into that, but yeah, part of me was a little nervous to throw in Devils before versus just sticking to Manitou training specifically. So it could be an awesome build, but it could maybe take too much out of me. So, I mean, we'll find out. I think as long as I properly recover and take this next 5 to 7 days and really just feel recovered 100%, then I'll be okay. But
cool.
We'll find out.
Well, right on, man. Well, that's pretty impressive. I know you've been, since you've gone after it once before and we're targeting it a ways before then, I know it's been on your wish list for quite some time. So way to stick with it and go after a East Coast Classic and way to take it down.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I will add one thing. I about half mile from the finish, I actually tripped and fell and started cramping in both my calves and was on the ground and knew the time was ticking, and I knew I was within, like seconds, a minute. I pried myself off the ground, kept going, and I probably I had 6-minute pace on the last quarter mile with like just this huge roar out of my mouth. It was just like a savage yell, and I just snuck under, and it was like the best feeling ever.
That's awesome. And hopefully
addition, I did it with a broken finger too.
Oh, well
which is probably not smart, and I do not recommend it, but
you didn't need that. You didn't need that finger anyway. And that was probably a little bit more streamlined there on the outside. So
yeah.
So, right on.
Yeah.
Well, Steven, awesome job, man. And
thank you so much.
I'll be out at Western when Manitous is going down. Otherwise, I'd love to be out there and seeing how you do. But hopefully it goes really well and be cool to see just Who else is in the field in terms of the front end this year?
I think we got Liam Cregan, and I'm not sure if Dan Grip's doing it. I think he just did like an AT section, like 70 something miles. So I don't know how he's feeling or how many big numbers he's trying to put together.
But Liam's fitness is coming back, so maybe at that point he'll be back on.
Neck full, and I'm not sure where he is. I haven't talked to him one-on-one really much about it, but I assume he and him will be sharing some miles. So
yeah, cool.
But, yeah,
right on. Well, Steven, it's good to have you, man. Congrats again, and look forward to talking to you here more soon.
All right.
See ya. All right, so let's try Katie.
Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, good. I literally sprinted to my office, which luckily is like 5 minutes down the street, to make sure I could get this to work.
Well done. Now, did you sprint by foot or did you sprint by vehicle?
By flip-flops.
By flip-flops.
I didn't have any time.
That was probably a good look, sprinting down there and flip-flop.
A little bit, yeah.
Make it happen. Well done. So for of all the individuals that I've known that have celebrated the Irish in their last name, this was, I imagine, a bit of a bucket list, amazing experience for you.
Yeah, it definitely felt like a bit of a homecoming. Obviously, I've spent a lot of time there. My family's super Irish, like there's the name. I've raced over on the West Coast a couple times. There's the
West Coast of Ireland, you mean?
The West Coast of Ireland, yeah.
Yes.
I've raced on the West Coast here, but let me tell you, the West Coast of Ireland is way gnarlier than the West Coast of the U.S. Sorry.
Well, I mean, most things are probably way gnarlier than the West Coast. But yes, keep going.
Yeah. So one of the things that really stands out to me, well, I guess two things, and why I really love running in that country is just how easy it is to underestimate the terrain and nature, and how nature's always going to win out there. It's a relatively small country, and your mountains starting from sea level, so the prominence is 2 maybe 3,000 feet max, but they don't really trail run the way we do over here. They don't really have well-worn single track, certainly don't do switchbacks, and I know that's kind of typical of a lot of European races, but you get out there and like you're literally going straight up to the peak. You're sighting a line to the peak. And like maybe there's a bit of a worn track, but it's a straight line up the mountain. You're going 30 to 40% grade for half a mile to a mile in bog, in open mountain, screen, rock. So
for a second, and then get back into it. Let's actually back up. Tell everybody what the event was that you just did and the nature of it, because that's all applicable to kind of the series and what the event was all about. So actually just preface the event with some of the specs.
Okay. So it was the Seven Sisters Skyline 30K out in Donegal, which is in the northwest coast of Ireland. It's one of the most, least populous and most remote areas of Ireland. And it was the first in the World Mountain Running Association Valser Cup or series. It was a silver race, not a gold race. There was also a 55K. The 30K was the WMRA race. So decent amount of competition. The girl who won it, I was second. So the girl who won it, Olivia Ambers, also from the U.S. Third place was an Irish woman. And I do think that maybe the top guys were Irish. But it traversed the Seven Sisters, which are 7 peaks that kind of run in a northeast to southwest diagonal close to the coast. And so the final sister is Errigal, which is the highest mountain in that region. And it's about, I want to say about 2,400 feet prominence, again, because you're pretty much starting at sea level.
Yeah.
So we kind of just rolled over every single peak. The 55K, they did Errigal once, but they went out and back. And let me tell you, so 18.8-ish miles, 7,400 feet of gain. Mm-hmm. And like, just for context, I think we were just talking about Devil's Path and how much was that?
Yeah, it's like 22 with like 8,000 feet of gain or something like that.
Yeah. So, kind of similar, slightly different terrain and footing. Mm-hmm. The 55K, I don't know how they did that because I was out for 4.5 hours and that I don't ultra run. So 4.5 hours for me was a really long time. But the top 3 women all came in under the old course record. So it was a really strong field this year.
Is this a long-standing event over there, or is this a new race?
It's a relatively new race. I believe it was like the 5th or 6th year that they've done it. And it was the first year it was in the World Mountain Running Cup.
And so it is just in terms of that exposure with the, at least the error goal there with the 2,400 or off of sea level. I mean, 24 doesn't necessarily sound like a lot until you see it next to sea level, in which case that's big exposure.
Yeah. And again, because they don't really do switchbacks, you're coming into the valley and you sight line the straight line up the peak in front of you. There's no relief. There's no mercy is shown. You have to go straight up. And one of the really difficult things is the terrain, is the bog that's out there. And you would think, okay, bog, it's like low level, flat mud, but it's not just low lying areas. It's everywhere. So you're hitting bog up to your knees. It's like spongy mud that completely surprises you while you're also trying to traverse like a 30% grade. So
that bog is not just on the flat land. I mean, you're getting up on that alpine exposure and then you're hitting those soft spots.
Absolutely. Yeah. Up on the peaks. I mean, whatever wasn't scree or rock was basically bog, and it'll start to kind of chip away because it's peat bog and mud. It'll start to chip away into these deep hollows. And again, because there's no real marked trail, you're kind of running blind. You come to a 5-foot drop and you're like, well, if I drop into that, I'm probably going up to my waist in mud. Do I take the chance? Do I run around it? Do I hug the fence line? Kind of follow the flags, because it was flags, so we didn't have to navigate. But I've talked to a number of people who are not from the area, who are not used to fell running in Ireland, and it just kind of blew their minds. They're like, I couldn't get into a rhythm. Everything took me by surprise. I was so frustrated. I was so angry. And again, I had a little bit of context going into this because I have run over there before, but it's kind of soul sucking, like to just not ever be able to get your footing.
I guess you're somewhat used to that, right? In terms of the East Coast terrain, that's one of the difficulties is there's so many just rocky areas, and you coming out of PA, similar, where you could just, it's tough to find a rhythm in some of that crap, but now you add the bigger sense. And
yeah, I will say, I think running in Southeast and South Central Pennsylvania, where I am located, probably was the best preparation I could have done, with the exception of actually training over there. And I got to give a shout out to the Conestoga Cowboys and F&M Track Club, who I mostly run with. We pretty much find ourselves on the Conestoga Trail, on the Mason-Dixon Trail, a lot of gnarly, not a lot of vert, decent amount of vert, at least for the area. So prepping for this, 2 weeks out, I did a 20-miler out and back on the Conestoga Trail. If anybody's familiar, it's the southern 10 miles of the trail, which traverses probably the rockiest, most technical section in our area. Runs through Tuckling Glen, Kelly's Run. It's boulders, it's slick rocks, it's steep, it's decent amount of vert. It was about 5,400, I think, feet of vert in the 20-miler. So then compared to the 7,400 over each, it was about the most comparable thing I could have done here.
Yeah. And how big was the event? How many people participated?
I want to say there was like about 600 total. It was, fairly large. Yeah. I think for the 30K, there might have been about 200 people. A lot of people went after the 55K because they're nuts. It's fair.
And then did you feel that kind of European vibe, or did it feel like more of like coming out of this sleepy Irish village and suddenly you're out in the middle of nowhere and nobody, or was it just people all over?
It was a great event. Tons of spectators, great support. The start for the 30K was like way out in the middle of nowhere. We had to run about a K to get to the actual start line from the last like road drop off point. They were blasting music. They've got like, early aughts, like club music bumping out there in the middle of nowhere. The race director, Ewan Quinn, was, pumping everybody up, announcing some of the international competitors. So it was a great vibe. Like I would go back like just to party.
So is that what you do next year? Will you go back just with the wearing the silver medal around your neck and just kind of party at the occasion?
I might run and then party. I might give it another go because it was really fun. And like the selective immediate amnesia of just how difficult it was has already set in, and I want to do another one.
Cool. And then what else you got on deck? And anything that you're keying on for this year?
This was my goal race, and I smashed it. Basically, that's really what I wanted to do. I am looking ahead to the World Masters Mountain Running Championships, which is also going to be in Ireland this year. And so internationally, I guess Masters is 35 and up, and I am close, definitely north of 35. So I'm looking at
cheating. That just seems young for
Yeah.
Master. I mean, some are not even at your peak yet. They're not really a master. You're like peaking at 36 or 37.
True, but like, my kind of road running background. So I feel like this is a second win for me, and I'm enjoying it, absolutely enjoying it, not taking it for granted. So that's early September. I'm pretty close to pulling the trigger on that. It's not going to be as long or technical as this race. It's one of those like 10K net uphills, like Loon Mountain.
Yeah.
So speaking of which, I might do Loon Mountain, but for the most part, I think I'm going to play around, enjoy the summer, hit some shorter races, maybe get back to the 5K on the road.
Which is, well, whatever. Yeah, I mean, if you focus on the mountain, you might as well just get wicked fit and fast and take it from there.
Yeah.
Right on. Well, Katie, it was cool to see. I didn't do a screen share here, but for anybody you're following, Katie, you posted a pretty cool photo from the event, which just looks like you are kind of a pea in this massive landscape in the middle of this big ascent. So it was cool to see and inspiring, and it sounds pretty awesome.
Thanks for having me.
Totally. All right. I'll talk to you later.
Bye.
See ya. All right. So we are going to roll into a segment on Highlands Trail Festival. We'll bring in a few individuals here. And it's good to see all of your fresh faces. I think the last time that I saw each of you, you didn't look, well, Justin, I'm not going to lie, you still look fairly fresh at the end. But I hear it's because you polished off a full 2 liter of Coke before the last aid station before leaving. And so you were probably very much juiced on life and caffeine at that point. Rest of you looked a little worn for the effort, but nice. And to each of you, Claire, I haven't caught up with this past week since. Alex, I just caught your YouTube video, which was cool. A friend, Todd, Todd was one of the other 2 individuals that you were running with there at New Weiss that second time coming back in. I think he's one of the ones that gave you your headlamp, and he sent me over your YouTube video, and he just thought,
oh wow,
he really appreciated your just your take on all of it, and it was cool. And then Marek, for you to just double back with Quest for the Crest, dude, you are a glutton for events, these 2. So let's just get into it Justin, let's start with you, because you were, not only did you win the 100K, you won, but then you also,
good job, Justin.
Good job.
Totally.
You're a beast,
and as we go,
man.
for any of you, feel free to dig in too in terms of questions or comments for each other. But like Justin, the fact that you finish and you still look totally in your zone, and one of your first comments was, "Man, I really wish you had kept the 100, or you could have kept the 100 mile out here."
Wow.
And not many would have, I think, agreed with you there, but you were one that for sure could have pulled it off in the moment.
That's
so,
crazy.
and with you having some experience out there and doing Kim's route with a 100-mile FKT out there, I think there's only 2 of you that have done it. So that's one of those where how you judge an FKT where it's just 2 of you. But in any case, what were you expecting, and what was your kind of takeaway, or what did you think of the whole thing?
Yeah, well, first of all, I thought you put together a beautiful course. It was definitely, I've been running through some of that area, but not the entirety of it. And I certainly appreciated the technical terrain. I think the ups and downs, the vert, I think it was exactly as advertised. So I think my watch, it came in about 65 miles and 15,000 feet of vert. And so I got a little lost. I think everybody got a little lost. So it was probably about 100K if you ran the 100K route perfectly. And so I wasn't really surprised by the course, having run on some of it before. I think you may have undersold it a little bit. I think you probably could have, something you said on the website was like, oh, if you try hard enough, anybody can do this. And I think the conditions on the day is like, not everybody could do it.
Yeah, and I think that was, I guess, my ignorance there as well, or my naivety on that course, and seeing all of your efforts out there. I mean, it was clear that was just a grinder out there, and just seeing how it beat people down.
So certainly the weather, I think, influenced that. The rocks were wet, and it rained. At least for me, the last hour or 2, it had rained, and so that slowed folks down. It was hot. It was humid. It was, probably the first warm day of the year for a lot of folks. And so I doubt many people were heat acclimated. And so I think all that added up. But, if you looked at it, only 2 people finished the 100K. And, if the other folks, even if they had the will to finish, I think they would have been timed out because, second place came in maybe 10 minutes before the cutoff. So it wasn't really a lot of time to finish. So that it was just tough in that direction too, like aggressive cutoffs. So I loved the course. I thought it was beautiful. Obviously, it's right up my alley. It's the type of course I love to run on. And so for me, it was perfect. And then if folks like challenging, difficult, slow, walkable terrain, like this is exactly that. You don't have to feel any shame for walking up the hills. There's no choice. You got to walk. Just walk and get over with it. So I really loved it.
And then Alex, you can jump in there too, but it also being in your literal backyard or front yard, however you look at that. I mean, you kind of knew what to. I mean, had you run most of those trails before, or at least?
No, not at all. Not at all. I've ran a couple of trails. That was my first ultra. And I remember being 10 miles in. I was running with someone and they asked me, so what inspired you to pick one of the toughest trail races in America as your first ultra? And I was like, what? I didn't even know that. And what inspired me was it was right next door. But anyhow, either way, I was going to give it my best shot. But Justin explained it perfectly. It was a tough trail, very technical with the elevation and stuff like that. But it was my first ultra, and I've never ran on anything like that. Wasn't expecting that. But you know what? One thing I realized that between mile and mile 15, in my mind and body, I'm hurting, my feet are hurting, I'm catching blisters. But even towards the end, I noticed it's the same pain. And I noticed something throughout the race that in my mind, there's a filter for just not giving up and just continuing to run. I noticed that. I was like, wow, I haven't even thought about like stopping no matter what the pain was. And I don't know, my body just kept moving forward. So regardless, whatever the trail was, in my mind, I was going to go for the 100K. And I remember reading one part of the email that Ian sent a week earlier saying, oh, guys, when you make it to the 50-mile mark, some of you may think that you've had enough of the trail, that it was a good experience. You might want to stop there. And I remember when I first read, I was like, nah, I'm going to go for the 100K. But then for the last 6 hours of the run, I kept thinking of those words by Ian. I was like, he's right, man. Once I hit that 50 miles, I'm done, man.
And that's a hard thing, right? The way that course is set up in a design, partly just the configuration that I'm working with, part is just the labor of having enough people out there and how you put things together. But for such a burly course to come in and be like, wow, I've got to go back out and do the same thing that I just did out and back for another 12 miles. I mean, that is just a mental just kind of beat down. I mean, Justin, you wasted no time and you got right back out of there. And there was only Jason was the only other one I think that was able to make it out of there with enough time to go at it. But if there were more, like, I don't know how that goes in your head. Like, in terms of who wants that punishment. Marek, maybe you would have, because again, you clearly wanted it the next weekend. Claire, how about for you? You were one that you initially were signed up for the 100-mile, right? And that's what you were after?
Well, I was signed up for the 100K. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I think if I could have done the 100K in 19 hours, I would have gone back out there. I've done things that have taken me longer than that, but I knew based on cutoffs, I knew by mile 16 when we got back into jungle habitat that it wasn't going to happen. Like, unless, and somebody else asked, I was glad it wasn't me, if the second part of the course was easier. And when I heard oh no, I was like, yeah, no. If the second half had been a lot easier, then maybe, but because my legs still felt good, but I just wasn't able to move fast enough. So yeah, I was actually glad of the configuration because it meant that I didn't have time to go back out, but I also was able to. It didn't feel as much like a DNF, even though it kind of was. That I stopped at 50. So yeah.
And then you were also one that I think looked pretty good throughout the day. I mean, you've done again some longer stuff as well, but there were some people like Alex. It was, as I mentioned when you were out there several times, it was really fun to see you just like, I don't know, this is like my first time through a race. I've done stuff on my own that's been long, but like for you to have started that course on that day without carrying any hydration or anything like that, for me, I was like, I'm wrong. Like I'm going to be in a serious liability issue here because I should have made you leave with like hydration or whatever. But at the same time, like you looked good and enthused and you were going after it. But all that's to say, it was cool to see you figuring this stuff out like on the fly, whether it's taking the foot lube, whether it's like, I'll be okay. I'm going to guzzle fluids here. It was fun to see you work that out. Claire, you were out there. You seemed kind of relatively cool, calculated going after it. But that's just how early it was. And then for you, Marek, you and Justin were fairly close. Were there periods where you two were running together, or because I feel like you guys were back and forth a little bit, right?
I can hear you. Can hear me?
Yeah. Yep. You're good.
What was the question? Because I can hear you before.
Yeah. So you were out there, I feel like, charging, and you and Justin were going back and forth a little bit. I mean, you were one that wasn't just out there to try to get this Burley event done, but like you were racing. Like, I mean, you were running hard.
Yeah. Actually, that was my first 50 miler. So I was trying what I can do, you know. So I was going hard for 16, 20 miles, but after that I have my legs, you know, get start, like I was carrying, you know, a lot of weight on my legs, so I get start going slow, and I know I have next race, like, you know, Quest next week, so I go starting slow, a little bit slower than I want to go, but there was good race. I was enjoying very much, so it was fun. First 50 miles was very good experience for me.
So similar to Alex, where you're jumping in terms of where you're coming in and setting the bar. I mean, a flat mile hurts a lot, right? A 10K is hard, but in terms of where you're setting it at by metrics, these really hard, difficult technical races, I mean, your bar is now set. Like, I don't know. I mean, you can get into some altitude, I guess, which changes it, but I don't know if you. And maybe we'll talk about in the next clip in terms of when I keep you on here, Marek, to talk about Quest for the Crest. But I'll be interested in your experience in doubling those two back to back. So for going at it again, so Claire, you had mentioned if you had heard that the back half was maybe a little bit easier, that may have changed the equation a little bit. And I think I probably had people ask that at least 6 times when they came back into jungle habitat. I think the same thing, like, is that what I'm going to do more of or whatever? And
I had looked at the elevation profile, so I had a pretty good guess.
And
I tell you what, Ian, that last section of the race for me for the 50 miles was perfect. I mean, it was pretty flat for the most part going back into jungle habitat from Weiss. It was pretty flat ground and downhill, which was perfect for me. And
that last mile or two, that 1 mile or two was runnable.
That was probably some of the cleanest of the course,
right?
Set
and that up on purpose, thinking it's going to be
how the configuration worked out. But I think that it was good. You had that initial grind along the creek after you crossed the road. It was just like, this sucks. Like, you're whatever.
Especially in the dark. In
the
dark and the rain.
I can't wait to do that trail again, guys.
And when I was marking it, I was like,
out of here. But I want to say thank you so much for having me. You are all very epic. I remember running with all of you, and I hope to see you guys next year at the same trail.
Yeah, cool. Alex, we'll catch up with you more.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, man. Nice work. So like marking that stretch along the river, I was like, I'm burning up way too many flags here. If like this is really what the whole stretch is going to be like, I'm going to run out of markers like halfway through this segment. But I was thinking for you guys coming through at night, I was like, like that's a tough one to mark because it's so gnarly. But then it eases up and you kind of flow in and you've got some nice little, I think, open slab places. But to that point, though, when people were coming through and I was bringing out my computer, I'm like, look, here's the elevation profile. Here's where you are on the profile. here's what you have coming ahead, and it's a lot bigger climbs and metrics than you just went through. So I don't know if that was dispiriting or whether that was fun for you all to be like, yeah, I mean, let's just bring on more punishment. Did you feel like the back half was more challenging, or was it kind of evenly distributed for all of you? Marek, what do you think?
I'll go real quick.
Go ahead, Justin. Yeah.
I thought, maybe the mile or two around the jungle habitat was easier. I think everybody thought that too. And then, but outside of that, everything was pretty much hard. I remember the area around the pink trail and the first mile or two before that other aid station was like, it probably looks flat on paper. And then the technical terrain, or maybe the lack of actual trail, contributes to pretty slow going through those areas.
My favorite was there was between New Weiss and Camp Wyanoke, there was a part where when you're going out, when you're going toward New Weiss, there's like a big rock that I had to like scoot down on my butt, and I'm pretty short too, so that might have been part of it. But like, I spent the whole rest of the time till I got back wondering how I was going to get back up that rock going back, and then it started raining, and I was like, I really don't know how I'm going to get it. Turned out not to be a problem at all, but I spent hours worrying about how I was going to get back up this one rock, because it was just like a little dicey getting down it. So that was fun. I felt very accomplished when I made it back up.
And then Marek, how about for you? So with it being your first 50 mile, how did you anticipate the grind and kind of the beat down was going to go? And once your wheels fell off, so to speak, I mean, that was your first experience through that kind of mileage.
I think very good. I was feeling very good all the course, and I loved it. It's not like long climbs, not long downhill running, so that was perfect for me. Whole course, so I enjoy it very much.
Cool. And then we'll see whether the event gets a year or two or not. I haven't committed one way or the other. I still need to get an email out to all you finishers and to the volunteers and see what everybody thinks. I think that venue can obviously, it's kind of this weird ruins porn vibe of what's there, but it's a huge venue, right? So it could take quite a number of people, and I mean, you could do a timed event in the parking lots, you could do some sort of like film screens and like so many options, I think, with that venue. But if it were to go again, is there anything that each of you would change, either about the course or the format or anything?
Yeah, I'll go first. So I'll definitely sign up again next year. I'd love to do the 100 miler if you have it. I could probably settle for 100K again. That was okay. And then I probably wouldn't change anything. I think it was great just the way it was. I actually loved having to go back out the last 13 miles. It was comically bad, I guess is the way to describe it. And so it was just like I was having a great time. It was fun. So I wouldn't change anything. And like the 50 miles of course, if just that 50-mile loop, I thought it hit a lot of the right trails, and obviously you have to balance the need for support and the aid stations and the access points. So I know it's not easy, and that's like pretty remote areas. So I think you probably did the best you could there with those constraints. So I probably wouldn't change anything about the course.
Cool. Claire, what do you think?
It's easier to think about the things that I would have done differently. So, but
well, to do that, what would you have done differently?
Well, I wasn't sure. I ended up, I would probably train differently, just like knowing a little bit more specifically what's ahead, make sure I could get out to some gnarlier trails more because my lifestyle didn't really allow it. But in the lead up to this, and I thought I would be, fine getting a lot of miles and strength training and stair climber, which, helped some, but maybe not enough. I might have used the poles from the beginning because that did help, and I'm never sure when to use them or not. But those were,
and some of that's tough with poles out there, right? Because there's so much technical terrain that you're almost working just as hard trying to find a place to actually plant the pole where it's going to be, and then you're like, yeah, I'm pretty okay just like holding them when I need to, but they did come in handy. I was going to say, I kind of felt like it was hard for me to judge if
the second part was harder or not, because I grabbed the poles when I got back into jungle habitat, and that felt like a big boost. So
yeah. And Marek, how about you? Anything that you'd change about the configuration, course, or anything?
I don't think so. I like it very much, and I think the race have a big potential, because that parking area, you can set up the tent over there and sleep before the race and everything. I think it's good. For me, it was very, very good experience.
Cool.
That's something I would do differently, is I'd camp at the start next time rather.
Yeah.
I'd already booked a campsite when I knew that was an option. I was like, darn.
Yeah, and I've always liked going to those events too, where you get that community or that scene there, and people, if they would potentially arrive a little bit earlier, or even, I mean, most people were finishing pretty late, but even just hanging out in the parking lot overnight Saturday camping and setting up little solo stoves or whatever, and I think it would make for a pretty fun scene. And if we could get maybe Axel and Slash to maybe kick it off with jungle habitat for next year, that might make it all the sweeter. Well, right on, Marek. I'm going to keep you on. Justin and Claire, what do you got? What do you guys got coming up?
Sure. So right now I'm just preparing for Manitou's Revenge. It's coming up, I think, the end of June. So maybe got about 4 weeks. Yeah. So I kind of missed out a little on training. Got a little injured at the race or afterwards. So I've been doing more biking and just now getting back into walking and jogging. So probably need to do some more training. I'm going to try to get up to the Catskills and then get out there for Manitou's.
Cool. And just an overuse thing, or is it just like a trauma where you hit something?
I actually don't know. I've never had this injury before, which is weird because I get injured all the time. So this one, I was just the side of my my lower leg, maybe a tendon or a muscle there. Maybe it was overuse, but I've been doing a lot of training on that sort of terrain, and so I don't think it was any different than normal. So I'm not sure what happened, but I'm getting old, so maybe that's it.
That for sure could be it. Well, if you got a good day, it'll be fun to see you and Steven just hopefully as much flow as can be found at Manitou, just kind of flowing out there.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I just hope it's maybe a little cooler and drier than last year, because the heat and humidity kills me. So we'll see.
And then Claire, what you got on deck?
I'm signed up for 100 called Tuscarawas in Ohio at the end of the summer. Was looking for something with kind of more rolling hills. I would love to do 100. I run most of my hundreds except Eastern States. I run it like right at 26 hours. I would like to go a little faster. So we'll see.
Right on. Justin and Claire, awesome efforts out there. And thanks for taking some of your time tonight. And it'd be fun to catch up with you. And Marek, you stay on, and then for Justin, hopefully I can have you back on after Manitou's, and then Tuscarawas.
Yeah,
Claire, we'll see.
Justin, I see you in the Manitou.
All right, see you there. All right, see you. Thanks.
All right, see you.
Bye.
All right, so bringing in the Quest for the Crest crew.
Yeah.
Nice work, all. All right, so Marek, I'm going to dig in with you just because it's Run Bum style to pretty much make the bold claims about his events, where it's either the most scenic in the world or it's the toughest in the world. But it sounded like this was a pretty burly course on Quest for the Crest. So with you must have been a little bit beat down from Highlands the weekend before, but it sounds like Quest for the Crest had longer sustained climbs. But how would you just did 2 back-to-back really tough races. How would you kind of compare the two?
This one was like completely different. It was like 3 very long climbs and 3 very long descents. So, which I don't like. I prefer like short downhill rather than long downhills. I don't like that. So, but it was very different than Highland Festival was. Very long climbs and very long downhill, so very different. But I like it very much. Mostly the uphill part. I feeling very good in my legs and everything. So it was a very good experience.
And the scenery looked beautiful. I mean, for Jan, how about for you? You've done some events where you do pretty well with some of the long climbs and descents, at least coming out of some of the Virginia pocket races. But Was this your first time through Quest for the Crest, or had you done this one prior?
Yes. Hey, Marek. Ako
Hey,
sa
ahoy.
máš?
Dobre.
Ahoy. We're both from Slovakia. Did you know that?
Yeah, no, I did not. Nice.
Yeah. So I did the 10K at Quest last year, which I loved. And I knew that's just a little taste of what the race is like. And I wanted to come back to try the big dog, the 50K. And that's why I spent the last year doing these climbs and all this crazy stuff, because this is completely not my style. You know, my background is a little bit road running or flat, fast running. So this was completely different for me, and it was amazing. I've never done anything so steep, never done anything so technical. It was amazing. Yeah.
So on the technicality, Marek, how would you, in terms of the footing, was Quest for the Crest, did it have a lot of technical rocky footing as well, or like compared to Highlands, or was it the footing was a lot easier to run, so to speak?
Not really. It was same. Some rocky climbs, some technical climbs and downhills. Was pretty similar. Only those long uphills and downhills.
Yeah. And then for David, seeing one of your posts there, just in terms of a beautiful sunrise over Mitchell or around that time. You've been around quite a bit now. It seems like, and you said it was one of the most beautiful places I think you've ever been. So it sounds like you were pretty stoked, and it was a pretty amazing, beautiful event.
I mean, yeah, that sums it up. I mean, they're legit mountains, you know, pretty huge range, big valleys, and it was a nice day. So, I mean, yeah, it's, I mean, the climbs were 4,000 feet, so that's pretty substantial by anyone's metric. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so if you focused on Europe, I guess that's pretty, it's kind of as good as you're going to get in the States, right? In terms of some of the sustained climbs. Is that about on par with what you're heading into here?
Yeah, I think the gradient is about the same. I mean, you can get, you know, Pikes is almost 8,000, is 7,500. I think there's some like 8,000-9,000 in the Sierra. In Tucson, that climb is like 8,000. So, I mean, yeah, it's not really like the biggest climbs or anything, but yeah, I mean, they were pretty substantial and gnarly as well. Like, you know, a little bit of scrambling going on and some really steep grades and twisty, rocky, rooty, gnarly stuff. So,
and it sounds like you raced pretty well, held back a little bit in the front from Avery, and then when you separated, kind of really went after it and kind of didn't look back, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, it was, I knew it'd be pretty hot, and then, you know, it gets up to altitude and sort of runs more like it's over 6 hours no matter what. So, yeah, I just held back on the first two climbs, and then just didn't slow down on the third, and that was good enough. So.
And is that, are you coming at us with a loaded car right now in terms of being on the road and on the move?
Well, yeah. Well, I've been in Chicago.
Okay.
And I was just running in this, if anyone's ever been a trail runner in Chicago, they know Palos Hills. Yeah.
I've not run in Chicago. But it sounds like if I do find myself in Chicago, that I know what to Google in terms of what to go find there.
On 5 somewhere within proximity, yeah. It's kind of the only place. It's actually where the first ever nuclear reactor is buried. So that's sort of exciting.
That is exciting, I guess, depending how you look at that and what you're going after. But it sounds like you went well. And on the competitive front, and Jana, you were second? Were you second female on the day?
I was second. There were two of us that ran under 9 hours, and that's actually really slow times. The weather.
Well, yeah, that's a good question, because I was looking at that too. Even David, your win time too, and for the men and the women, I mean, there's some pretty fast times running this course that both of you were back a bit from. So I was wondering if the course had changed or whether it's just some really faster years. So yeah, Jana, keep going. But what's the discrepancy?
Yeah. So actually, last year I didn't realize that, but last year Sean was not able to get a permit to run it all the way to Mount Mitchell. So the turning point was under, like, the people didn't summit Mitchell. So it was, you still have 3,300 feet to go. So he had to eliminate that piece. So it wasn't the true quest last year. Because Sabrina's time last year was 7:20. So the times last year were blazing fast because they actually didn't summit the mountain all the way to the top. So this year he brought the course back 2 years after COVID. And so it was the full traditional quest course with the 12,000 feet. And we actually summited Mitchell, turned around, and then ran down. So I was actually curious to see if David was able to run all the climbs to get the finish time he got, because that was a power hike for me. I mean, there was no running those 3 huge climbs. There was just power hiking and then jogging down. And it was humid. It was hot. I knew it's going to be Sabrina and I, because the third female, Dr. Ziotto, was about over an hour behind us. So there was no pressure on me thinking who is behind me, but it was very challenging that day. Like David said, it was a nice day, but it was really humid. I think the humidity index was in the 90s, and it was crazy humid. I mean, we were just focusing on staying hydrated. From mile 10, I went completely on fluids only. Wasn't able to really eat anything. So it was a pretty tough day. So for Sabrina to finish 8:29, that's a pretty slow quest time. But I think we did awesome. I'm really amazed David was able to hang on to the first place. And when we talked to Avery in the finish line, he said he just couldn't catch him. So he just, he wasn't willing to work that hard. And David got the first place. And I personally think this race should belong to East Coast runners. So congratulations. That was awesome.
And what do you think, David? So you're I know you're pretty fit at the moment, but your time was the 8th fastest, and that wouldn't just be from last year. There are a bunch of the fastest men's times from 2015. There is one from 2021, so a couple of those. But what was going on in 2015?
The course was like 3 or 4 miles shorter, and
there too. Okay.
Yeah, it was. Avery would run it twice before, or was saying that this was the longest, and they stuck on a little climb, like a 300-400 foot climb at the last 2 miles, and that wasn't in there. So yeah, I don't know exactly. I mean, obviously the 2 people in 2015 are good runners who are on the on the record board, but I think it was not this. It was a significantly easier course. Plus, in the course of 7 years, these types of trails can change dramatically however they're upkept. And but yeah, I guess it was a lot easier. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean, I guess if there's a bigger group of us, we would faster.
Yep. And is it and Marek, how was you for your first 50 mile the week before, and then coming back at a 50K? How your legs feel now? Are they pretty crushed, or you make it through the back-to-back all right?
I'm all right. I'm feeling good, actually. I have another race in Saturday, so I need to be prepared. So,
what are you doing on Saturday?
It's just fundraiser in a Beacon. It's 10 miler on Mount Beacon, so not a long run, but still.
Right, but still a little. I guess that's. I imagine Mount Beacon is still pretty fresh on in David's burned in David's memory bank there.
Yeah.
Right on. So that's what you got coming up. Jana, what you got coming up? What are you doing?
I have a 50 miler coming up. It's OSS CIA 50 miler in Triangle, Virginia. It's on June 11th. So what's that, 2 weeks from now? I don't even know, but we're going to try and get the new women's record. It's a night run, so it starts at 6 p.m. So I'll be running through the night. That'll be good for me. And, you know, all my training kind of goes towards Barkley Fall in September. So just going to try and raise the bar and keep the challenge coming.
Is that ahead of the Barkley Fall Classic? That's what's on your fall radar?
Yes, I'm doing the OSS CIA 50 miler, maybe Catoctin 50K. That's in July. I'm doing Jarman's Invitational.
Jarman's, there's a glutton. Nice.
And then Barkley Fall Classic.
Cool. And then David, when do you, man, are you close? When do you head out? A little lag on the connection there, but David is about to head for the Alps, I think, here coming up soon. We may have lost your connection there, David. But I believe that's what you have on
Monday.
There you. Oh, you're heading out Monday evening. Oh, wow. So that's right coming right up. That's exciting. Are you pretty stoked?
Yeah,
as much as I ever see you get stoked, visually, emotionally.
I'm stoked. Don't worry.
Yeah, that's good. Well, I am stoked for you, and it's just for that whole adventure and chapter, and I'll be stoked to see how it goes. Well, to all of you, great job. Thanks for again carving a bit out of your time here, David, especially as I know you're got a lot on deck, probably about to head out of Dodge there. So congrats to everybody, and it will be great to check in with you each again after the next adventure.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah.
Good luck, guys.
Yeah, you too.
All right. Rolling into nice backdrop there. Jessica, how's it going?
It is really well. It's great.
Yeah, you
Thank
have in terms of you this chapter, at least occupationally, this seemed like a really good opportunity. Let's just start there because that kind of speaks to where you're at in life at the moment and what you're doing and what you have on your plate.
Are you referring to how my virtual background is hiding all of the piles of boxes behind me?
I don't know anything about boxes. I see maybe occasionally around when the green screen loses your hair there, or maybe we can get a glimpse of boxes, but otherwise it looks like you're in a fantastic alpine zone right there.
Oh yes, I'm in the North Cascades in this virtual background.
When they're not burning, North Cascades are outstanding.
Yes, one of my favorite places in the world, I'd say.
Right on. So where are you? So Jessica Vandbush, where are you based and what is your current occupation?
So I currently, right now today, I live in Boise, Idaho, and I am currently moving, as in this weekend, I'm moving to Colorado. I am the store manager at the North Face in downtown Boise. But I have accepted a pretty rad position at the North Face headquarters, managing the social media accounts for their trail and climbing accounts on Instagram and Facebook and Pinterest and you know, wherever the cool kids hang out, basically.
Which is huge, right? So North Face, I think I've got a couple of the new releases, I think right around me. I think the M&S is maybe over my shoulder, but so you're going to have to take some pretty rad photos of this and put it on all sorts of social media accounts. North Face has a lot going on and trying to recommit to the trail space and being an active player there. I don't know if I'm totally buying into the Vective thing yet, but clearly they're pretty committed. But so were you already working at the North Face store and then that was kind of a segue to apply for this position, or did they throw you in that seat ahead of moving on to the media position?
Yeah, so basically, the North Face is taking their presence in the trail running community very seriously, and looking to expand there and grow and really embrace the community in a meaningful way.
Mhm.
And I have been a retail manager for quite a while, and especially in the outdoor space, that's been my day job for a while. And I've been working at the North Face. I previously worked for REI, and this program is, or basically how I came into this role, is because they were looking for a trail runner that is part of their organization, and they were willing to teach me how to do all the fancy social media stuff, and they wanted somebody that was authentic to their user. And
Mhm.
even though I'm not an expert at TikTok reels or whatever that is, I'm not even on there. I don't have those kind of fancy skills yet, but they were willing to show me the way. And so came this opportunity, and I jumped at it. I think it's really important, and I'm excited and honored to be a part of it.
And that's a pretty cool testament in terms of, I guess, them indeed trying to be pretty authentic in the space, as opposed to finding somebody with the skill set first and then just trying to see if they can speak to the trail community. They went after the trail community first and willing to teach you those skills. So I guess that's a good testament in terms of them really trying to do it right and well.
You can tell, when you follow an account on social media, and you can tell when they have a marketing person who's researched hiking, but maybe it doesn't get out there, and they're making like posts about, a trip or something, or how something works, and it falls flat. And I think that this, the longer I've been with the North Face, the more stoked I get about what the organization is doing each day, from how they use recycled materials, or, they're engaging, different communities through their Explore Fund and things like that. It's a really cool thing to be a part of. And I think it does show that they take this seriously. And, oh geez, I just hope I don't mess it up.
Well, I guess as long as you stick to who you are, I guess you could mess up the technical stuff if it's tricky to pick up on some of the social media stuff, but it's whatever. I guess that's just doing your homework and passing the test, so to speak, and getting savvy with it. But as long as you stay true to who you are, you've been in the space authentically here for a while. So I guess as long as you stick true to yourself, I guess you won't screw that up. Hopefully.
Right. And that's probably, I do so to a fault at times. Always keeping it real. So, it'd be definitely an adventure that, going to Colorado, which is, I don't know. I know a lot of people are like, you hear everybody back east. I lived in Cleveland, Ohio for 15 years, and ran all over the East Coast. And I know a lot of people we lose them to Colorado or out west. And I've never been that girl who wanted to live in Colorado. That was never really got me hot. Mm-hmm. And so, here I am about to go to this place and do this brand new thing. And it's really exciting. And I guess I wanted to point out, it's just not typical. But part of what we do is we, just like at the starting line of a race where the end is not yet determined, and you run fast and take chances. That's kind of what I'm doing here with this. So
awesome. And gender gap. Let's go there. So that's been a focus of yours, and making a documentary on the topic of gender gap in trail and ultra, or just trail, or what's been your focus?
Right. So I am kind of the accidental person doing this. It's not like, my life's mission or anything like that to work on gender equality, but like a lot of things, it's kind of, well, if nobody else is doing it, I guess I have to. Mm-hmm. I started a print magazine a couple of years ago. It is called Eat Clean, Run Dirty magazine. And it is an independent, beautiful magazine for the community that we are a part of, trail and ultra running, and other just adventure folks around the scene. You don't have to be a runner to like it. And something that I've committed myself to is to focus on representation as a way to enhance the culture. And representation, not just like color of skin or gender or things like that, but also geography. To bring up Colorado again, a lot of the other magazines are all about California or Colorado, or about the elite runners, or about certain races. And so I get to, because it's my magazine, I get to feature all kinds of stories and places and things like that. I am a runner myself, and I really like that 100-mile distance. And since I started running, I noticed that it's a lot of guys at that starting line. And I started doing a lot of research into it. And it turns out that on average, at the starting line of a 100-mile trail race in the United States, it's about 20% women. And so kind of thinking of how could I recruit women to the starting line of these races that I love so much, instead of pointing my finger at policy or blaming things or anything like that. I thought, well, let's recruit them, and let's do that through storytelling and listening and learning about where they are. The women, some people just don't want to, and that's okay. But the women who kind of might want to, like, why aren't they coming? Why aren't they showing up and signing up for these races and learning about that and doing something about it? So I've never made a movie before, but I have lots of moxie, and I applied for a grant from Fujifilm to make a documentary film about the 20% project, is what I call it. And once you know it, I won. And they've given me a ton of wonderful equipment and a team and a little bit of, gas money, and we're making a movie. And how we're doing that about the 20% project, I thought no better way than to profile a woman who is a runner that inspires me. And so this movie will be profiling Nettie Zepatella of Cincinnati, Ohio. I find her to be quite remarkable as a human and as a runner. I met her running my very first 100-mile race at Burning River. And so we just wrapped up our first sessions of filming this last week. We're in Ohio with her. She leads Trail Sisters runs in the Cincinnati and Dayton area, and she's a race director herself and has some pretty cool races in Ohio. And we'll also be following Nettie to Western states because she's gotten that ticket in the lottery this year, and she'll be out there. So we'll be filming out there too.
Does she where is she in the pack? Does that, and whether that makes a difference on I mean, I guess it doesn't necessarily matter one way or the other, but from that vantage point, when you said ticket, was she open lottery, or is she like a speedster that got one of the golden tickets, or is she? Oh.
No, so I am glad you asked. No, Nettie's not going to be in the top 10 of this race. That's not because she's not a talented runner, but she's not going to be. Mm-hmm. And additionally, that would not be helpful to the movie, mm-hmm. because I want women to know that this is reachable for everybody who wants to come run with us in the 100-mile distance. And part of the problem is that the movies that are out there are all about elite athletes, mm-hmm. who have contracts and get to run twice a day in Flagstaff or Boulder or somewhere like that. And Nettie is a mom that works and volunteers and is a flatlander in Ohio. And she pulls a car tire and does repeats up and down a dam. And she didn't start running until late in her life. And she's 50 years old. And she's going to go crush it at Western states. And so can you, if you're, watching and you're a woman. It's never too late to start. And there's no obstacle that you can't overcome to show up at the starting line of a race that inspires you. So I expect Nettie to finish somewhere under 30 hours at that race, depending on how her day goes. And I'm sure she'll suffer well that day and earn that buckle.
And did you look toward Nettie as how long ago did the project conceptualize, or how long have you been putting this together? Or when did you put in the application, so to speak, for the Fuji?
Right. So the 20% project as a whole is kind of an underlying thing that we feature in the magazine. And the film grant came to pass in February, I believe February. So a pretty fast turnaround. Our film is due August 30th.
And did you know, was Nettie did that lottery already happen? Did you know she was going to be in Western, or did that end up being a pre-known piece of the story? I mean, because that's definitely a media-sized story and event, even if it's not the top whatever speedsters. There's still that name recognition, that Hollywood character to Western.
Honestly, to go back into how we started in the keeping it real category, it just so happens that Nettie got this ticket to Western States, and it really doesn't have anything to do with why we're making this film. We're not making it because Nettie happened to get into it, and there's a lot of remarkable women that we could follow, but I wanted to follow Nettie. She cleared her race calendar up until Western States because she got into that race. We are both running Fat Dog in August, and I would love to be covering that race. But since I'm running it myself and the project is due on August 30th, that is just not going to cut it. If, for example, Nettie was running Hellbender or, some other Eastern states, oh God, I would love to cover one of those two races. We would be filming there. It's just circumstantial that we'll be going to California for this.
Cool. And then for the this larger 20% project, and it'll be cool to see how it shakes out in the documentary in terms of dealing. I don't know, actually dealing is not the right word, but in terms of talking about some of the issues that feed into the 20%, in terms of some of your thoughts or findings or things you've covered in the magazine. Do you want to kind of dig into some of that? Does that sound fun, or you're like, no, dude, no, you can watch the film when it comes out?
Well, no, I think it's interesting, especially for, the people watching that also want to encourage more women to run these races. And both genders included. There's been so many amazing guys that have been, really wonderful advocates and mentors to women who are getting into the sport too. I know it is you're in the sport, Ian, obviously, it is a really supportive community. And I feel especially east of the Mississippi, people are just ready to welcome you to it with open arms and, teach you what they know and, help you along the way. And so, but, asking women that are interested in running it, what's stopping them, it kind of comes down to two different categories of feelings, right? They're usually fear or guilt are the two things. It's fear of the dark, literally running all night long, and fear of the dark and being in strange places, getting lost. That's not on everybody's thing that they do regularly, is run all night long with a headlamp on in strange woods. It's a fear of wild animals and literally getting eaten by bears or attacked by mountain lions and things like that. Sometimes it's fear of getting attacked by people. Missing lady jogger is a real thing that happens outside. There's headlines like that for a reason. And we've heard of some really horrible things that have happened to some women being hurt and attacked or abducted. Usually it's road running that you see that sort of thing at, but it does happen. It's a legitimate fear. And then guilt of time away from your family, guilt of how much money it costs for all this, guilt of using resources, guilt of, it being about them and not about the people in their household. So it kind of comes into that. So the stories that we tell in the magazine are challenging those things or addressing it. For example, the wildlife issue, we had a really cool article in the magazine about bear safety and about, with diagrams on how to hang your food at a campsite and then talking about different kinds of bears. You know, a bear in Pennsylvania, if you run up to them on the trail, I saw my first bear in the wild on the Laurel Highlands Trail. You can clap at that bear and scare it away. But if you're up in Montana, that's probably going to be a grizzly bear, and you'll get your face eaten off if you start clapping and yelling at it. So building your knowledge of what to do in those wildlife encounters to keep yourself safe, but the animal too. And I had, that article written by a really cool lady that started a bear safety school out of Wyoming. And so knowledge and, empowerment, and it's part of our responsibility to learn about these things. So, articles like that are good for everybody, no matter what gender you are. It's just like, as a trail runner, you should know what to do if you see a bear. Articles like that, I think, are helping. And hopefully, as we attack these different issues and talk about them and get different, lady runners talking about the things they overcome and different way to look at those issues, and that'll help us through that storytelling, get more ladies out on the starting line and on the trail.
Do you think it was still kind of fun and entertaining to watch that? I think it was may have been Colorado. One where the runner almost got eaten by the cougar there. I think it was a couple years ago that went fairly viral on. I mean, there are probably some of those out there, but there's one that was a really, really scary, angry cougar video. And
yeah, so that one, as far as that mountain lion video goes, I kind of feel a couple ways about it. Number one, that guy taunted at mountain lion, so he was kind of a dumbass, I would say. So I had those feelings about it. But then also I've had personally 2 mountain lion encounters trail running where I had standoffs with mountain lions. And so it's completely terrifying. And it it's definitely triggers some emotion for me, because both times I saw those mountain lions, I thought that was it. I was going to die. And so mixed emotions of me thinking that guy was a dork for how he behaved poorly, but also I've had some pretty serious situations with mountain lions before, so it definitely helps to know what to do if you see them.
That's tough to even know that it's real, right? I mean, it's very, I don't know how common or rare that it is, but I imagine 99.99% of runners will never encounter a threatening hierarchical animal out there, but now you've got 2, so you're not doing well to sell me on the whole getting out there and becoming a trail runner at night, because I actually don't want a mountain lion to latch onto the back of my neck if I can help it. I would rather not. I've had 2 mountain lion encounters. I've heard them more times than just those 2 times, and here in Idaho there's also a lot of wolves to worry about, and then thinking of some of the running plans I have later on this summer, grizzly bears will definitely be something that I'll have to navigate. So education is where we go for safety on this one. So, and I guess this is something that has come up when I've had some conversations with individuals that may be trying to get into the running scene and coming out of urban environments. I was about to just half joke that probably more of a danger where you are, well, not necessarily in Boise, but in Idaho as a state, as opposed to the cougars and the grizzly bears, would be the prepping white supremacists that tend to maybe fill some of those backwood trails over there. I mean, I guess that would be the greater threat, and maybe that'll have to be some sort of article in Eat Clean, Run Dirty as well, because I think that would be a viable threat in those there backwoods. But to your point, though, there are a lot of very tangible risks out there in terms of trail running. So what do you say to somebody that's, well, I guess you've already said it, right? I guess you've done a couple articles in terms of how you work with that, how you deal with bears and knowing the difference between bears. And so I guess that's a very finite step-by-step, let's educate people on what you do in that situation. And so it's not necessarily saying it's not going to happen. It's like, all right, well, if it does happen, here's what you're working with.
Yeah. I mean, I think another part of it is to knowing where you are, right? So I've kind of got my trail legs in Ohio, and there's not really any animals that are going to eat you. There's not a whole lot of apex predators there. And there is a lot of coyotes and stuff like that, or like big black rat snakes and stuff that's creepy and you don't want to like run into it. But the knowledge that a coyote does not care about you and is not going to attack you, they just might be kind of cool to listen to at nighttime. If you're, running through the woods at Mohican for a night practice run, knowing that it's okay and they don't care about you, I think is empowering too. So just knowing what's around you. And then I think another thing is, supportive community. And if you are afraid to run at night or you're scared to run it alone or something like that, so run with a friend. And I think that another way to really help this situation is, strong communities, these running groups and things like that, using those as places to connect with other people. Outside of just maybe your weekly group run, and being welcoming and open to new people, making sure everybody feels like they have a seat at the table, like as somebody who might be a regular at a group run, making sure that, you invite the new people for the beer afterwards, just really be welcoming. And then, like on things like social media and stuff like that, if you have a running group and somebody posts something like, hey, I'm thinking about going on this run, like if it's somebody who's newer or, isn't as well connected as you are, like look out for them and invite them with you on your night practice run or something like that. Just to make sure people have running friends. It's more comfortable maybe for new people doing these things to have somebody to do it with. So, put yourself out there and be that friend.
How about the guilt piece? Because that has come up in others that I've talked to, and it's one of those where, I guess, how are you looking at that? It would be, I don't see that as one where you're saying necessarily, I guess that would be more validating it, and it is what it is, as opposed to here are the steps to make it go away. Because I don't know, at least for me personally, just being a male, but with like 3 kids, when I get out there and some of the, particularly, and this has changed quite a bit since I had kids, or since we had, my wife and I had kids, that when I'm out there, I find myself like, what are you doing? Like, why? You would much rather be home with your kids doing something that, chances are, if I were home with my kids in that moment, I would be glued to something on my cell phone that I didn't need to be on. But you get this rosy picture when you're out in the miles and be like, really, this is stupid. I should be at home with my kids right now. And I have heard, I can't say that I know, being a male, but that it seems stronger for women. But how about, I guess, how are you talking about? And it's something that you try to lessen, or it's more just recognizing it, and it is what it is.
Right. Those are great points that you bring up. And I think it's important to recognize that everybody feels this way sometimes. It's not a gender specific thing. Something that the way I'm combating it, and while I want to say I am no expert at all in any of this, but a way I'm combating it when I talk to people about it, or choosing how we tell these stories, is just a mindset shift. I myself am a mom, I have a daughter, and thinking about feeling guilty about, especially when she was younger, not being at home when I'm out training and stuff like that. The other side of it is, what kind of example are you setting for her? What do you want for her? What do you want to teach her through what you're doing? Would you want her to stay at home and to, do the chores and make sure laundry is done? Or would you want her to know that she's capable of anything? Mm-hmm. And that you want her to know how strong she is and how focused she is. And your daughter can learn that about herself by watching you and the example that you set for her and what's possible. And while she might not grow up to be a trail runner, she might ultra play music, or she might ultra do, computer software engineering, or whatever it is that your children end up geeking out on and being passionate about. They'll have this idea that anything is possible through hard work. And also something that is very true is nobody is doing this alone, right? And so if you're in a family situation like yourself, Ian, and let's say you're training for a really big race and you're putting in 10 hours a week or whatever of running, I'm sure the people in your household are, picking up some of the chores around that and stuff like that, or maybe everything's not perfect, something's got to give. And I think showing those stories too of, like being really realistic and showing that, this person who is running these races, maybe the husband is the one who does the laundry all the time. And maybe they order pizza more than cooking a home cooked meal because it's convenient, and that's okay. It's okay. However you put it together is okay. And it looks all kinds of different ways. So I think that, showing, and that's part of why, for the movie, no, we're not showing an elite athlete that's only job is running. We're showing people trying to juggle a lot of things all at once. And they're making it happen. And I think that people will be able to see themselves in that, when these people that we profile or show, whether in the magazine or with the movie, hopefully they'll see themselves in those stories and think that they're possible too.
Mm-hmm. Where are you heading in Colorado?
I am going to be living in Manitou Springs.
Oh, wow. Is North Face having...
I'm sorry. I selected it specifically based on trailheads and affordability. So it seems like it's the most affordable location with the most trailheads as possible within a reasonable proximity to Denver. So I'll be right near Garden of the Gods and Red Rocks and the Manitou Incline and Pikes Peak. I'm kind of like living in the middle of all of that, which should be pretty rad, I hope. And my job is 80% remote, 20% in the office. So when I'm in Colorado, that's where I'll be. But I'm going to use this as an opportunity to kind of travel around a little bit and do the work from home thing, or work from wherever I can find Wi-Fi.
Is North Face, they have a outpost or a corporate place in Denver? Is that what their proximity to Denver is?
Yes. Yep. The North Face, the VF Corporation, is has their headquarters in the United States in Denver, downtown.
Uh-huh. I guess I should know, since I pay so many bills. I think I sent out 3 checks to VF Corporation yesterday, so I should pay attention to where I'm mailing those, I suppose.
Yeah.
And how old's your daughter?
She's 22 years old. She's a
22.
full-on
Wow.
lady at this point. Yeah. I had her when I was 19 years old. And so she's a lady now. But she did get her driver's permit, and she crewed me for my first 100-mile race. And she's volunteered at many aid stations. And I'm trying to convince her to come to my next race and crew me there. So she's finally at that age where she starts liking me again. She wants to hang out with mom again, which is pretty rad.
Where is she based, or where is she located?
She is still in Cleveland, Ohio. I do my best to talk her out of it, but she's got a cat and a cute boyfriend, and she's got a cool job. So for now, that's where she is. I'll just have to visit her more.
I guess they're all good things and anchors. It's got to be interesting to look at your daughter at age 22 and be like, wow, like I had you when I was like 3 years younger than you are right now, and just talk about how boss you are. And I mean, it's such a huge responsibility, and here you are, and still probably looking about the same age as your daughter at this point is pretty phenomenal. That's pretty awesome. And that she's got some good anchors there as well. I'd say, she's going to come join you in this cool new adventure, but it sounds like she's pretty good where she's at. What is she running?
No, she definitely doesn't. She's the opposite. She hates running. She is working to be a pastry chef, and she is in charge of cookies and savory pastry and croissants at a really cool bakery in Cleveland. And she does not run at all, although I have signed her up for a couple of 5Ks. I believe the last race that I signed her up for and made her do was it was the Turkey Trot in Akron, Ohio. It's a 4-mile race, and it benefits a homeless shelter, and it's a big tradition for those Akron folk. And we started the race and, got to the finish, and I was kind of waiting, because mom's a little bit faster. And so I was at the finish line waiting for her to come in, and I turned around and she was sitting at the curb, like eating a box of Krispy Kreme donuts. Like, it was so funny. Yeah, she's not a runner, but like I said, she's starting to want to hang out with me again, and she's agreed to where I don't have to force her. See, she's like doing it on her own free will, and she's agreed to take a trip a year with me. And so this last year we went to Olympic National Park and did some cool trails in the Hoh Rainforest and camped out there, which was really cool. I'm not sure where we'll go yet this year, but I'm hoping to bring her to the desert and maybe in Arizona and check out some stuff there.
And so as you got into ultra, speaking to the topic that you're getting into in some of those issues, did you start running? You got into trail ultra, some at least your first and ultra sign up were 2015 or so. So what's your daughter's name? If you're okay with sharing.
Her name's Johanna. Yeah, her name's Johanna. We call her Joe.
So Joe was already like 14 or 15, like at that point or whatever. And so did you just happen to were you already running anyway, or you're like, no, I didn't, and I didn't have time for it? Or like, I guess, what's your background in getting into it? Did some of the issues, I guess, that you're now dealing with that gender divide in terms of time or guilt or resources or whatever, how did that shake out in your own personal story as you got into it as your own child was older?
Right. Oh no, I totally struggled with it. And actually, some of the races I do, because I have a podcast too, that I've not posted a new episode in a few months, but sometimes I'll bring a recorder with me to the race and I'll record running and what happens. And I've recorded some pretty dark moments of just feeling like a total piece of crap for being out there doing this, these races and not just being at home like a normal person, there's, I've struggled with it definitely, especially when your calories are low and you're at mile 80 and, it sucks. Yeah, I wasn't always a runner. I used to smoke cigarettes and, I guess, I wouldn't say normal people things, but around 30 years old, I quit smoking and started going to the gym a little bit, and eventually got involved with a mixed martial arts community in the Akron area and started working out and feeling good about myself for being fit and making good choices, and got really strong, and kind of my life took a different way of like I was trying this cool stuff. And with that, we usually warm up jumping rope and things like that in the dojo. And instead of jumping rope, we started running outside. And we all kind of trained to run a mile. And I got really into it. And, I ended up signing up for my first 5K and then a 10K. And I did the Tough Mudder and stuff like that. But at the same time, I was like experimenting with running and skipping the dojo when it was nice out to go for a run. My, karate friends started dragging me out to the Cuyahoga Valley National Park to go on bike rides and stuff like that. And I remember the day that I saw these people running through the forest with just reckless abandon on trails that it just never occurred to me that people might run them. I grew up in Wisconsin, camping and hiking and fishing, and I've been on plenty of trails. I never put two together that you could run on it. It blew my mind. And
I think it blew my mind. Hold that train of thought, but funny because I think growing up, I grew up Amish country area of Pennsylvania, and I remember some of the sporting goods stores that I see out there. I just didn't understand the concept because I grew up a swimmer, but then started running. But I'd get to these places, and then the sporting goods was like hunting and fishing, and I was like, how does that even qualify as like sports? Like I don't understand. But you're coming at it the other way and thinking, what are these people doing out there? And it seems like that would be a good, I don't know, even just, I don't know. I was about to say a cultural divide, but it's not really a divide, but in terms of that cultural awareness and what's embraced in different pockets and the amount of growth that's been in the trail scene, which has been not exponential, but quite a bit, but still probably more are like you coming out of these pockets that are just not really exposed, or like, why would I do that? Or who does that?
It's this weird thing. Sometimes trail and ultra running, I really think of it kind of like Fight Club. It's this thing that's happening all around you, and most people don't even know it's there. These people are off, sleeping sound in their beds and being comfortable in their house. Meanwhile, in the woods in their backyard, there's people running with lights on their heads,
Mm-hmm.
And it's underlying, and you don't realize it's there until you find yourself in a situation like that, where I saw these people running through the woods. And I saw that, and I went on Facebook and I was looking for trail groups, and I found a group in Ohio called the Crooked River Trail Runners. And I got up the guts to go to my first couple of group runs. And those people were really welcoming. And they did make sure they invited me to the clubhouse for a beer after. And they did talk to me, even though I was this new person who wore road shoes and probably was kind of awkward and definitely not coordinated or fast. They kind of, they welcomed me. And through that, I, learned what 50Ks were. And basically I signed up. I went from half marathon in the spring one year to then in the fall that year, I ran my first full marathon at the Columbus Marathon. And I looked up, because I was, hanging out at the clubhouse with these rowdy runners. I looked up a 50K training plan, and it so happened that your longest run before a 50K is a marathon. And it's about 3 weeks, after. So I went ahead and did my first marathon. And then I signed up for a race called the Fuzzy Fandango that is in the Mohican area of Ohio, and ran my first 50K later that, that's a couple weeks later. And part of that group was the Crooked River Trail Runners. They invited me to a film festival that came through town, and it's now I know that it was James Varner's and Abe's film festival. It came through Cleveland, and I didn't know many people there, but I went and sat in that theater, and I watched a movie about Orcas Island.
Now you're making me feel old, because I remember that, but I remember wasn't that like 2 years ago? And I feel like I've been in this space for like 20 some years, and I'm like, wait, that was like a year or two ago. But
it was longer ago than that. And I sat there in that theater and watched that movie about Orcas Island. And I didn't even know that 100-mile races were a thing, let alone that they did this trail running stuff in the mountains. That just blew my mind. And I've never even been to the mountains before. And I knew sitting in the theater that day that I wanted to be a mountain runner too. And I wanted to know what those people in that movie knew, what that sparkle in their eye was from. And so I set out to run the Orcas Island 100. And I did so with Burning River and the Chattanooga 100 as my training runs, and, kind of made my way out there. And now it's my very favorite race, and I go to it each and every year, and I would never miss it. And just little things like that for people listening. I think by the time I ran my first 100-mile race, I was 36 years old, and I hadn't started running until I was 34. And I went from half marathons, 100 miles in a year and a half. And I just want people to know that it's possible, and it's never too late to start.
I think you're a good example right now on how the space has evolved, though, as well. As you were, I think, talking and me thinking back to even where I grew up in PA, there was this would have been I don't know, early to mid 90s or whatever, be running, and there was this old, I shouldn't say old, maybe he was my age, however I am now, but it seemed like this old guy that would show up occasionally when we were running, and he would just kind of appear where we'd meet occasionally for these runs, and he was an ultra marathoner, and this was the first like what do you do, like but he'd show up in like these, I don't know, wicked old, even then, like wicked old, maybe like leather, like running shoes, or maybe it was like the original Nike waffle trainer or something like that, and wearing these really kind of baggy, like just cotton sweatpants and shirt or whatever. And he had this like long, scraggly, like red hair and beard or whatever. And it was like, that kind of fits, like that kind of makes sense for like, that's what that space is all about. Like, it's just kind of like these old weird guys. And that's weird. Fast forward to you 20 years later, and you're a young female kid, professional, had it all going on in terms of like, that's in my head, it's like kind of a in the moment, mind-blowing moment to think back of who my first visual of the ultra space was to where you are. And it's like, these are nowhere even remotely in the same ballpark of that individual. And so as you just being an example of where the space has gone in relatively short order, 20% is still much lower than the obviously demographic split in society at large. Actually, so what's the, I guess, do you know what the participation split is gender-wise in some other mainstream sports? I mean, maybe it's Title IX, maybe some of the other opportunities have equaled out some of those playing fields, so to speak, but
and I have not, I don't want any kind of rules about or impose upon our sport that there must be a certain amount. I want this to happen organically, not in a situation where we're forcing there to be a certain head count. That's not what we want to do. Just talking about trail running, because I've not researched other sports, but let's talk about trails. At the 25K distance, there tends to be a female, definitely like leading the way there. Sometimes it's even 60% female at the 25K distance. If you look at 50K, it's about half and half. When you get to 100K, that's where it starts really changing. And it really is dependent on with that 100K distance, and even with the 100-mile distance, the terrain matters quite a bit. And so, there's, some pretty tough 100Ks out there. You looking at Colorado again, a race like Never Summer 100K, that's only like 18% women. And then you look at some other races and some groups that really try to promote women, specifically race directors. They're trying to get more women in the sport. And there's a lot of really great East Coast race directors that are encouraging women to be in the sport. That 100K distance, maybe you'll get 25 to 30% women if you're lucky, especially at the races that are really trying. You think of a race that I think of, both the Georgia Death Race and Run Bomb, they do a lot at encouraging women to be a part of that sport and that race and making it competitive in the female field too. And David Horton is another one, really encouraging women to participate in Hellgate. At those very female-friendly races, it's still only 30% at best female at that 100K distance. And then you go to 100 miles and it is 20% or less for most of them. So it's just really interesting. It seems to be the longer that distance, they're just kind of losing them. It's not that ladies don't like trail running. It's something about, I think, that level of time it takes to train for that. Trail running is not cheap. I know we joke sometimes you just need shoes. You don't need all this equipment. like mountain bikers or something like that, but running's expensive. Especially you're running that much, also like your food bill, like it's expensive. I eat constantly, stuff like that, traveling to the race, getting everything you need. But then also, there's this kind of, some of the fear is based off of what happens when it gets really hard. What happens if you can't do it? I don't.
Well, you brought a child into the world. You're a perfect example of, geez, when it gets hard, I don't know how much harder it gets than that. And there's kind of no turning back once that child's, coming out. So, wow. You
a 100-mile race is way harder than having a kid, to be fair. For me, at least, some of these 100-mile races are, really difficult and definitely harder than it was to have my daughter. But, it's something that can be done. Like, when we just talked on the show, you were talking about Quest for the Crest, for example. Like, I love that race. That's such a cool race. And I encourage anybody that can to go do that race. And there are some climbs in that race where you can't stop because of how steep it is and you have nothing to hang on to. Like, that's how hard that race is. It's a punch in the gut. It's a beautiful punch in the gut, but it's hard. And when you're doing that first 3-mile climb, it's crazy. When it gets really hard like that, you don't spontaneously combust, you don't start on fire or, something like that. You just, when you can, you take a break and have a snack and then you keep going. That's all that happens when it gets hard. That's all any of us are doing when it gets hard. Take a break, have a snack, keep going. It'll get harder. It might get easier. It'll change no matter what. And I think, putting it out there that, what happens when it gets hard? You just, nothing horrible is going to happen to you. And you, get to learn how tough you really are. So I think, tackling those kind of things is a big thing too. And then too, to be honest, some of these women just don't have supportive spouses. Some of them are in a bad situation. Maybe they're in a bad, honestly, if their spouse isn't supportive, I kind of question, maybe there's some other things they should question about their relationship too. But, some people are dealing with that and, that's difficult and hard. It's not always so black and white, or they just need to sign up for it. There's a lot of different things to navigate to get women involved in the 100-mile distance. And I'm just kind of in service of it.
And so you don't think it really comes down to just women are smarter than men. And when they look at the 100K and 100-mile distance, they're like, that's stupid. Like, why go do that?
No, I don't think that, at least because I'm one of those crazy people that keep signing up for things. But I think they're not sure they can do it. And I think that there's a lot of value in uncertainty, and there's a lot of value in trying hard things. And that if in general in your life, if you're not trying things that you're not sure if you can do or not, then you're just not reaching far enough. I think it's important to have imposter syndrome once in a while, because that means you're reaching and that you're growing.
And what's that thing for you that gives you the sense of imposter syndrome? What do you want to reach for that you're like, I don't know whether I can get that?
Making this movie it's terrifying. Oh my goodness. Like, I don't have a film background or anything like that. Making the movie is definitely reaching far. The magazine is reaching far. The races I sign up for are not promised. Definitely not guaranteed. I do a lot of things in my life. I am willing to take chances and fall and just get back up again. And I think the more that you do that, kind of the easier it is to do other hard things. It doesn't make hard things easier, but it's reassuring to know that, yeah, you won't self-combust. You'll still be there after, in most cases, unless you get eaten by that grizzly bear. You'll still be there and you'll just try again and you'll learn, and it's okay. And it's okay to mess up. You look at my ultra sign up, you'll see those DNFs, and I wear them with pride. It's because I tried to do some crazy things outside of my ability, and I'll keep trying again. The races I've not finished, I've gone out with a blaze of glory, and I've had to be removed from the course, and kind of reaching maximum adversity each time. And I don't let that stop me, that fear of I think that there's a lot of people, men and women, that are afraid to try something that they're not sure they can handle. And I think that or they're afraid of hard work, actual hard work. And I think that those things are character building, and I think you'd better do those things. And I'm just here to encourage people to do it, and know that I'll be cheering you on in the process.
And so the film, it's called the 20% Project. Is that that be the name of it?
That's it. Yeah,
Yep.
That'll be the name of it. We're working on yet. We're only, into filming. We're starting editing and stuff like that now. And we've got, we'll be at Western States, hopefully, and, filming Nettie there. But in the fall, we're talking about how it will be released. I'm not sure if it'll be at a festival or we'll do some kind of online event, maybe a little tour, in certain spots. I'm not sure what that looks like yet, but it will be available for everybody to see in the fall once we get to it.
Well, it might have to be if he or they are still at the helm, it has to be in one of Varner's festivals, since that was an initial hook for you and point of inspiration, and speaks to your roots.
I certainly hope so. That would be such a wonderful full circle event for me personally, that I learned about such a thing by watching a movie too. And this kind of, I think, why I wanted to make a film, because I see the value of that storytelling. I think it's really important.
Cool. Well, hopefully, I don't know, I'll stay tuned for it. And if there's a way that we can help with however it goes, with some sort of screening or getting you together, renting a theater in Ithaca or something like that, I'm open to circling back to that.
That would be wonderful. It's such a cool spot in the whole area in New York. Definitely love those trails there, and I would love and be honored to do something like that. Ian, thank you.
Totally. All right. Well, hopefully I'll catch up with you more in the interim, but I'm sure it'll be a whirlwind, but maybe we'll get a chance to connect out at Western as well in a few weeks, if not before.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Jessica, thank you very much
for having me on.
Totally. Thanks for your time.
All right. Bye.
Yeah. All right. So for those that were with us for this round of TC Live this week, thank you so much. Thanks to those who take it in after the effect or down the line. Thanks to those who like what if you like what we're doing, to show us that you like what we're doing. Like the station, share it in your own feeds, invite others to partake. If you are so inclined and have the resources, even a small amount of Patreon support goes a long way in terms of just showing your support. And I just want to say thank you to all of you. Let us know if you've got something going on that you want us to mention, if you've got an event you want to plug. If there are any initiatives that you want to be mentioned here, reach out and maybe we can weave it in, and hopefully we can really represent the collective together. So for this round, I will sign off. I'm not quite sure what's coming at us next week, but I guess we'll cross that bridge next week when we get there. So thanks so much. And until then, see ya.